I'm on a highway to hell. One simple line can make anyone think about acdc. The band has become so iconic that they need no introduction. Anyone who has the slightest idea about music knows about them. Although acdc became one of the most influential hard rock sounds, the band almost called it quits early in their career. With numerous obstacles, criticisms, and various lineup changes, the band still took the world by storm in the 70s. But their story doesn't end there. acdc continued to evolve and capture the hearts of fans worldwide, creating a dedicated following that spans generations. How did they manage to stay relevant in a constantly changing music industry? Keep watching as we deep dive into the band's history and see how they became a beloved part of the music world, from their early beginnings in Australia to their rise to international fame. The family that started it. Many recognize acdc because of Angus Young and his schoolboy short trousers outfit. Contrary to what many think, Angus Young wasn't the sole reason for the birth of acdc. In November 1973, Malcolm and Angus Young started a band in Sydney, Australia. Still, Angus has always said that his brother Malcolm was the reason the band even started. They got the name acdc when their sister Margaret saw the initials on the adapter of a sewing machine. Their older brother George was one of their inspirations. He was already in an up-and-coming rock band called the Easy Beats. However, he later left to mentor his younger brothers and produce their albums. It's clear that acdc formed because of a family effort. With Malcolm on rhythm guitar and Angus on lead guitar, they formed acdc, intending to create a band that played straightforward rock and roll. Before the band released their debut studio album, High Voltage, they underwent numerous lineup and personnel changes. However, the band was able to settle their lineup in early 1975, just around the time they released High Voltage. They consisted of Angus and Malcolm Young, vocalist Bon Scott, bassist Mark Evans, and drummer Phil Rudd. Early days of acdc and Bon Scott's death. Their first album, High Voltage, in 1975, was exclusively released in their native country of Australia. An international version with a different track listing was released in 1976 and was well received, although it received its fair share of criticisms. Rolling Stone even said that the band has hit its all-time low with the release of this album. However, that didn't stop the band from releasing more albums. It wasn't until the release of their third studio album, Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap, that they started to gain some traction internationally. They started getting exposure in the United States, even supporting big acts like Kiss, Aerosmith, and Cheap Trick. The breakthrough that propelled acdc into the top ranks of the genre was their sixth album, Highway to Hell, released in 1979. It became the first acdc album to break into the US Top 100. After this album, acdc was no longer known in the United States, Australia, and Europe. They gained the hearts and attention of hard rock lovers worldwide. However, only 7 months after the album's successful release, they went through a shocking event that almost had them disbanding. In February 1980, Bon Scott died at the young age of 33. He was allegedly left in his friend's car, asleep after a night of drinking. He never woke up and was pronounced dead on arrival at the King's College Hospital. The official report stated Scott died of acute alcohol poisoning, but many claimed that the whole thing was strange, a mystery. This shocking and sorrowful event prompted the band to consider disbanding. However, they didn't think it was right to continue without Scott. However, Scott's own parents encouraged the band to carry on with the band. They said it's what the late vocalist would have wanted them to do. The band did move forward and found themselves a new vocalist upon watching the band Geordie perform live. In an interview with Brave Words, Angus Young said Bon had mentioned that he had been in England once touring with a band, and he had mentioned that Brian had been in a band called Geordie. And Bon had said, Brian Johnson, he was a great rock and roll singer in the style of Little Richard. Angus and Malcolm reached out to Brian Johnson of Geordie and asked him to audition for acdc. After an impressive and fantastic audition, Brian Jones joined acdc, and the band started to work on their next album, Back in Black. The highway to success. With the help of Johnson, acdc was able to complete their seventh studio album, Back in Black, in 1980. Johnson was very much involved in the writing process of the album, featuring some of the band's most notable songs as You Shook Me All Night Long, Shoot to Thrill, and their title track, Back in Black, became an unexpected commercial and critical success. The album was so successful that it received a 25-time platinum certification in the US. It also became acdc's best-selling album and the second best-selling album of all time, trailing behind Michael Jackson. Jackson's Thriller. It's also considered the band's tribute to their late member, Bon Scott, as exemplified by the album's plain black cover art. After the album's commercial success, AC/DC's popularity kept soaring. They had shows left and right, and they went on to release more commercially successful albums. The shows they were playing had thousands, even millions of people. They influenced more bands to create rock music, easily making them one of the world's most popular and influential bands. With the success of their band, the members had to keep up with the lifestyle. With tours and appearances one after another, it's not surprising that the members had their own ways of celebrating and coping. But for Malcolm, it had become too much. In 1988, Malcolm had to step away from the band due to his alcohol addiction. He said that the vice had caught up to him. Angus was worried about him and didn't want him to end up like Bon. Malcolm took the time to get himself cleaned up. During this time, their nephew Stevie Young took the place of Malcolm for the meantime. Malcolm's problem had a clear impact on the band. Their subsequent albums experienced commercial declines. Many publications declared them a big disappointment because they were releasing uninspired albums. However, with the release of their 1990 album Razor's Edge, which featured the hit Thunderstruck, the band regained their positive reputation and popularity. They were able to tour the world with big crowds again and even made songs for movie soundtracks. Their success would continue for years. In 2003, the band was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, a title that they deserved after all the influence they've had on the genre. Malcolm Young's death and the band's hiatus. The band was sustaining its success, but behind all the great things, it was inevitable for them to experience a series of unfortunate events that ultimately led to the band's decline. In 2014, the band announced that Malcolm Young would be permanently stepping away from the band due to his dementia. This led many fans to think that AC/DC would be breaking up. However, Brian Johnson confirmed that they were still moving forward despite Malcolm's illness. Stevie Young, who previously filled in for Malcolm, was brought into play for the band completely. The band released an album following Malcolm's departure, 2014's Rock or Bust, with Stevie on rhythm guitar. A year later, in the middle of AC/DC's tour, their drummer, Phil Rudd, pled guilty to an assassination plot on his former secretary and drug charges. This prompted the band to remove him and replace him with Chris Slade, who played with them for their remaining tour dates for the Rock or Bust World Tour in 2016. With only 10 dates remaining in their Rock or Bust World Tour in 2016, the band suddenly rescheduled. This was due to the fact that Brian Johnson was experiencing hearing loss. He admitted that he couldn't hear the guitars and relied only on muscle memory while performing. Ultimately, he decided to step down from the band because he didn't want to give the fans a less than amazing performance. Axl Rose from Guns N' Roses eventually stepped in for him and finished the rest of the tour with the band. Following Brian Johnson's departure from the band, bassist Cliff Williams announced that he too would be leaving the band. He made this choice because he believed it was the right thing to do, after all the departures in the band. He said that the band was a changed animal already. After completing the Rock or Bust tour in September 2016, the band decided that the best course of action would be to go on a hiatus. In the midst of their break, Malcolm Young succumbed to his illness on November 18, 2017 at the age of 64. All together again, with a brief video clip showing the illumination of a neon night in the form of the famous AC/DC lightning bolt on their social media pages, the band stirred speculations of a comeback in September 2020. After what seemed like 4 long years to fans, AC/DC finally confirmed their return with a new album called Power Up. This was the band's first album without Malcolm Young, and in the same matter as in Back in Black, they said that Power Up would be a tribute to the beloved guitarist. For the album, AC/DC stayed true to their roots, sticking to the same high-energy, hard-hitting sound that made them famous. With luck and medical help, Brian Johnson was able to get his hands on a device that could help him hear while performing so he wouldn't have to rely on muscle memory anymore. This good news led the band to confirm that they would be back to the Rock or Bust lineup with the return of Brian Johnson, Phil Rudd, and Cliff Williams. This 2023, AC/DC announced that they'll play their first show in 7 years. They'll be co-headlining with Ozzy Osbourne at the Power Trip Festival. With a group effort from the Young brothers, the prominent AC/DC came to life. Despite undergoing several lineup changes and hurdles, the band proved that they could come back stronger. AC/DC's electrifying sound and contagious energy have cemented their status as one of the greatest rock bands ever. Their music will continue to inspire generations of fans to come. Long live rock and roll.